The hospital was bustling, the air heavy with the scent of antiseptic and the low hum of activity. I walked through the doors, the fluorescent lights flickering above, and my pulse quickened. The weight of the day's events pressed against my chest. I was about to face something that would change everything. As I passed the nurse's station, I caught sight of Dr. Harris. His posture was rigid, his eyes cold and calculating. He was the head of surgery, but I knew that beneath the polished exterior, there was something far more dangerous. He'd always had a way of making people feel small, of making them question their worth. But today, I wasn't backing down. Not this time. I entered the exam room, the sharp click of my heels echoing in the sterile silence. And there she was, Christy. Her face, a mask of professionalism, betrayed the tension beneath. I could see the hesitation in her eyes, the way she held herself, as if bracing for something she couldn't control. "Is everything okay?" I asked, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside me. But before she could answer, the door flew open. Dr. Harris entered without knocking, his eyes flicking from me to her. "We need to talk now," he said, his voice low and threatening. I knew exactly what this was about. This was the moment where everything would change. I had never expected my life to turn upside down in a single day. One moment, I was just another doctor doing my rounds at the hospital, and the next I was standing in front of the most powerful man in the hospital, fighting for my career and dignity. My name is Christy. I'm a dedicated, hardworking woman who spent years working in a field I love. But it wasn't always like this. I grew up with a dream of becoming someone important, someone who made a difference. But somewhere along the way, I had become just another face in the crowd. I knew I was better than that. I had the skills, the knowledge, and the passion. But the politics of the hospital, especially with someone like Dr. Harris in charge, had made it nearly impossible to break free from the shadows. That day, everything changed. I'd just started an exam when I was interrupted by the hospital CEO himself. He'd called me away, assuming that I'd be eager to help him with something more important. The arrogance of that man made my blood boil, but I didn't let it show. I continued my work, focused on the patient in front of me. And then Dr. Harris came in. "Hey there, gorgeous," he said, as if it was perfectly normal to speak to me in such a condescending manner. "Just here for my annual physical," I replied, trying to keep things professional. He seemed to find this amusing. "Well, you're in luck. I'm the best doctor in this whole hospital, so you're in good hands." I felt a twinge of discomfort, but I didn't let it show. I had a job to do, and I wasn't going to let him distract me. The exam proceeded, but Dr. Harris wasn't as focused as I was. He leaned in a little too close, speaking in that tone of his that always made me feel like he thought he was better than everyone else. "You know, I'm a very powerful man, very rich and powerful," he said, his voice low and almost seductive. "The kind of man who could make a pretty young thing like you feel like a queen." I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The nerve of this man. This wasn't a compliment, it was harassment, plain and simple. "Are you seriously hitting on me right now?" I managed to say, my voice shaky with a mix of anger and disbelief. He shrugged, acting like it was all just a game. "What's wrong with that? We could have some fun." He smirked. I wanted to slap him, but I couldn't. I had to remain calm. I had to stay professional. But inside, I was furious. This man had the nerve to think he could treat me like this, to belittle me just because of my gender and position. I couldn't let it slide. "No, it's not fun," I said, standing up. "It's completely inappropriate." He laughed it off, clearly not taking me seriously. "You think I'm going to let you walk out of here and make up some story about what happened? Who do you think they'll believe? Me, the esteemed head of surgery, or some dumb blonde trying to scam the hospital?" I stood still, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was wrong, so wrong, and yet here I was, powerless to do anything about it, or so I thought. I didn't have to do anything immediately, not when I had a whole hospital behind me, right? Wrong. The moment I decided to confront Dr. Harris, things escalated fast. My words were met with resistance, but I wasn't backing down. I went to speak to the hospital's CEO, Dr. Bloom, someone I knew I could trust. When I told him what happened, the conversation turned tense. It didn't matter that I had a reputation for being good at my job. What mattered was that I had stood up to the head of surgery, the man with power. "Christy, I believe you," Dr. Bloom said after hearing me out. "We're going to do something about this." It was the first time I felt heard. Dr. Bloom arranged a meeting with the HR department, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The man who had harassed me was about to be kicked out. I was going to make sure no one ever felt the way I did. No one had to suffer in silence. When Dr. Harris was called into the meeting, his arrogance was palpable. "You can't do this," he spat. "I've worked here for years. You can't just get rid of me. I'm the best this hospital has." But Dr. Bloom wasn't intimidated. "Actually, Christy is the kind of person we need around here. She did the right thing by speaking out, and I'm not going to let your behavior go unpunished." Dr. Harris tried to fight back, but it was too late. He was escorted out of the building within an hour, and just like that, the balance of power in the hospital had shifted. What happened next was even more surprising. Dr. Bloom, seeing my potential, offered me a position I'd dreamed of, head of surgery. I had always imagined myself in this role, but I never thought I'd actually get the chance. And now it was mine, all because I'd stood up for myself. As the story unfolded, I began to see the lessons in everything that had happened. Standing up for what was right may not always be easy, but it was always worth it. In the moment, it seemed like my career could be over. I was afraid of what might happen, of the consequences of speaking out. But now I realized that if I hadn't spoken up, I'd still be in the same situation, silenced by fear. I learned that no matter how hard it seems, doing the right thing will always pay off in the end. And when you take a stand, you don't just change your own life, you change the lives of those around you. As I settled into my new role, I couldn't shake the feeling of disbelief. Everything had changed so quickly, and there were moments when I had to pinch myself to remind myself it was all real. I had dreamed of this for so long, the prestige, the recognition, the power to make a real difference in a hospital that had been run by someone like Dr. Harris. But despite all the excitement, there was still that nagging feeling at the back of my mind. Was I really prepared for this? Did I deserve it? Could I live up to the expectations? The doubts crept in at night when the weight of the responsibility pressed down on me. But I had to remind myself of one thing. I wasn't here by accident. I had earned my place. One afternoon, as I was walking through the corridors of the hospital, a familiar face caught my eye. It was Amy, the nurse who had helped me during my confrontation with Dr. Harris. Her expression was serious as she walked up to me, and I could tell something was on her mind. "Christy, I just wanted to check in on you," she said, her tone genuine. "I know it's been a whirlwind, but I hope you're holding up okay." I smiled softly, grateful for her concern. "Thanks, Amy. It's been a lot, but I think I'm doing okay. It's just overwhelming sometimes, you know?" "I get it," she replied, glancing around as if to make sure no one was listening. "But just so you know, a lot of people here are really proud of you. You did something no one else had the guts to do. And now, look where you are." I hadn't really stopped to think about it that way. All I saw was the weight of the responsibility, the demands of the job. But hearing Amy's words made me realize something important. I wasn't alone in this. There were people who believed in me, who saw the potential I didn't even know I had. "Thank you, Amy," I said, my voice full of appreciation. "That means a lot to me." We shared a brief moment of silence before she nodded, her eyes shining with quiet admiration. "I'm rooting for you, Christy. Don't let anyone take away the fire that got you here." Her words stayed with me long after our conversation ended. I walked back to my office with a renewed sense of determination. It wasn't going to be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt, but I wasn't going to let any of it break me. I was stronger now, and I had more to fight for than ever before. Over the next few weeks, I found my footing in the new role. I made decisions that shifted the hospital's approach to patient care, advocating for better resources and support for the staff. Slowly, I built a reputation not just as a doctor, but as a leader, someone who stood up for what was right, even when it was uncomfortable. But the most surprising part of it all came when Dr. Bloom called me into his office one morning. He had a serious expression on his face, and I immediately felt a pang of anxiety. Was there something I had done wrong? "Christy, I just wanted to say that you've exceeded all expectations, he began, his voice warm but firm. I'm impressed with the way you've handled things, especially after everything you've been through. The changes you've implemented are exactly what this hospital needed. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders as I absorbed his words. For the first time since stepping into this role, I felt truly seen, like all the hard work was finally paying off. I'm glad to hear that, Doctor. Bloom, I said, my voice steady. I just want to do right by the patients and the team. That's exactly why I wanted to have this conversation, he replied. I've been thinking about your future here, and I want to offer you something more. He paused, letting the words sink in. My heart raced as I tried to figure out what he meant. I'm offering you the position of chief of surgery, he said, his eyes locking onto mine with genuine seriousness. It's yours if you want it. I blinked, stunned. I had never imagined this moment would come so soon. This was everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed for. I could hardly believe it. Yes, I whispered, the words feeling surreal. Yes, I want it. The rest of the day passed in a blur, and by the time I left the hospital, the weight of the decision began to settle in. I was officially the chief of surgery. I had made it, and now I had to live up to everything this role demanded. As I arrived home, I saw Lily sitting at the kitchen table, working on her homework. Her innocent smile greeted me, and I couldn't help but feel a wave of gratitude for everything that had brought me here. I had fought for this, fought for a future not just for myself, but for her too. Hey, sweetheart, I said, walking over to her. Guess what? What? She asked, looking up with a curious expression. I got the job, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I'm the chief of surgery now. Lily's eyes lit up, and she jumped up to hug me. That's amazing, Mom. I knew you could do it. Her excitement reminded me why I had fought so hard. It wasn't just for the position or the title. It was for her, for our future. And now I could finally give her the life I had always dreamed of. But the real lesson in all of this was something I had learned through the struggles. Doing what's right isn't always easy, and standing up to people in power can be terrifying. But sometimes those are the very moments that define who we are and shape our future. I had faced the consequences of standing up for myself, but in the end, it was the best decision I ever made. No matter how difficult it gets, no matter how many times life knocks you down, always remember to do the right thing. Because in the end, it will lead you to places you never expected, places you could only dream of. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to make a tough choice? What did you do? What did you learn from it? Share your thoughts with me in the comments, and let's talk about how standing up for what's right can change everything.